After a family dinner, while I was cleaning up in the kitchen, my daughter-in-law leaned close and whispered, "You old witch, I only tolerate you because of my husband." I laughed it off and replied, "Don't worry, you won't be seeing me anymore." The very next day, I had the locks on the house changed and they called me an old bag in my own home, the very place I'd given them refuge. But what truly broke me wasn't the insult itself, it was the chilling realization of just how much of myself I'd already lost. The first rays of dawn were just painting the Hayward sky, a muted California haze creeping over the distant hills. In the quiet hum of my familiar kitchen, a deep sense of unease, long simmering, had finally boiled over. At 65, my mornings started early, often before the city stirred, a quiet rhythm dictated by age and a restless mind. I'd learned to live with it, just as I'd learned to live with so many other changes. I sat on the edge of my bed, in my room, in my apartment, though lately it often felt like none of it belonged to me anymore. From my window, I could see the highway, a faint ribbon already dotted with the first commuters heading towards Oakland and San Francisco. For 32 years, Arthur's car was among them every single morning. Then he was gone, and everything changed. I slipped on my robe and quietly left the room. This apartment, nearly 1,300 square feet, was once a canvas for Arthur and me. We bought it in the 80s when California wasn't quite so impossibly expensive, added a second floor, built a patio. So many plans, so many dreams woven into these walls. Now, it had become a battlefield, and I, Eleanor, felt like the losing side. The kitchen was spotless, a habit ingrained from my decades as an ER nurse. Order was paramount, especially when chaos swirled around you. I put the kettle on and reached for my one small indulgence, a box of delicate Earl Grey tea, a treat from a little shop near my old workplace. My daughter-in-law, Cynthia, only drank coffee from capsules and always wrinkled her nose at my tea. While the water boiled, I started mixing batter for pancakes. My son, Michael, had loved them since childhood. Even now, amidst everything, I made them every Saturday. Maybe it was my quiet way of clinging to a single thread of the past, a time when we were a real family. A faint creak from the back of the apartment signaled Noah, my youngest grandson. At 14, he was already taller than me, all lanky limbs and tangled dark hair, his eyes perpetually hidden behind long bangs and oversized headphones. "Good morning, Noah," I offered, a small smile. "Pancakes in 15. He merely nodded, not bothering to remove his headphones, and slumped into a kitchen chair, tablet already aglow. I stopped taking his behavior personally a long time ago. At least he didn't snap at me like his older sister, Chloe. But I knew deep down, Noah saw everything. He understood the unspoken tension better than any of us. "Mom, have you seen my blue sweater?" Chloe's voice sliced through the morning calm as she strode into the kitchen, already dressed and perfectly made up. At 17, she was a beautiful echo of her mother, high cheekbones, a sharp nose, rich chestnut hair. But her eyes, those were Michael's, soft, brown, a direct inheritance from my late husband, Arthur. "I washed it yesterday, dear. Should be in your closet, second shelf." I already looked there, she snapped, then softened, catching herself. "Sorry, Mom. I'm just late for my project group meeting." On a Saturday morning, can you believe it? I raised an eyebrow, flipping a pancake. "Veterinary classes, remember? Treating stray animals project." I nodded, remembering how determined she was, ever since Arthur gave her that wild animal book for her 10th birthday. "Check the laundry basket in the bathroom," I suggested. "I might have forgotten to hang it up." She dashed off, returning a minute later with the elusive sweater. "Thanks, Mom. You're the best." She pecked my cheek, grabbed a pancake straight from the pan, and devoured it. "This is so good, Eleanor." Cynthia's sharp voice made me jump. She never called me Mom or even Mom Eleanor. Just Eleanor, as if we were colleagues or strangers. She stood in the doorway, hands on her hips, her slim, fit figure impeccable at 39. A manager at a self-service laundry, she always dressed for an executive board meeting, strict trousers, crisp blouses, minimal jewelry. Her blonde hair was pulled into a severe bun, highlighting her sharp features. "Did you move my things in the bathroom again?" "I just wiped down the shelves, Cynthia," I replied, my voice carefully even. "All your jars are exactly where you left them." "I can't find my hand cream." She squinted. "The one Michael gave me for our anniversary. Maybe it's in the bedroom?" I suggested cautiously, continuing to flip pancakes. "I always keep it in the bathroom," she snapped. "In the right drawer, with all my other things that you're always moving around." Noah snorted softly behind me, eyes glued to his tablet. Chloe rolled her eyes. "Mom, I saw your cream on your nightstand," she said, stuffing the last bit of pancake into her mouth. "Gotta go. I'm late." Cynthia pursed her lips, offering no thanks to her daughter or me. She simply spun around and left, leaving a faint trail of expensive perfume and unspoken grievances. I placed the finished pancakes on a large plate, alongside the maple syrup, another of our fading family traditions. Michael appeared just as I finished washing the pan. At 42, with a receding hairline and a slight paunch, he still looked like the little boy I used to carry in my arms. My only son. My pride. My pain. "Morning, Mom." He yawned, stretching. "Pancakes? You're a miracle." In moments like these, I wanted to believe that not all was lost, that my boy was still in there, somewhere, beneath the tired, spineless man who let his wife rule his mother's house. "Your father always said a Saturday without pancakes wasn't a Saturday," I smiled, pouring him a cup of coffee. Michael nodded, avoiding my gaze. We both knew he didn't like me talking about Arthur. It made him uncomfortable, reminded him of how much things had changed since his father's death 5 years ago. Cynthia returned to the kitchen, holding the hand cream demonstratively. "It was on the nightstand, just like Chloe said," she announced, glancing at me. "Next time, Eleanor, don't touch my things, okay? Everyone needs their personal space." I nodded silently, though 1,000 retorts screamed in my head. My personal space had been violated long ago. This apartment was my property, for which I was still paying the mortgage. I had let them move in after Michael was laid off, thinking it would be temporary, a year at most, until they got back on their feet. 3 years had passed. Instead, I poured myself more tea and walked to the window. From the 8th floor, I had a sweeping view of the city, the distant hills, and on a clear day, the bay itself. Today, the sky was a typical California haze. "Mom, Cynthia and I are going to Roy's birthday party tonight," Michael said, chewing a pancake. "Will you stay with the kids?" It wasn't a question. It was a statement, as always. They never asked if it was convenient or if I had plans. They just presented me with a fait accompli. "Sure," I said, turning to him with a manufactured smile. "I've got a new book I've been wanting to read in peace." "Great," Cynthia said, pulling a yogurt from the fridge. "Oh, by the way, I noticed you used my shampoo again. The French one." "I asked you not to touch it, Eleanor. It's expensive, and I buy it specifically for my hair." I hadn't touched her shampoo. I had my own, a regular supermarket brand. But there was no point arguing. "I'm sorry, Cynthia. I won't do it again." She nodded, accepting my apology like a queen accepting tribute from a vassal, and sat at the table next to Michael. They began discussing their evening plans, completely ignoring me. I finished my tea, placed the cup in the dishwasher, and retreated to the sanctuary of my room. Passing Noah's slightly ajar door, I heard soft music. He'd returned to his room immediately after breakfast. My grandson was absorbed in a game, his thin shoulders tense, fingers flying across the keyboard. "Noah," I ventured, "would you like to go for a walk today? The weather's lovely." He turned, pulling off his headphones for a second. "Can't, Grandma. Online tournament. Team game. Can't let the guys down." "I understand." I smiled, one last attempt. He nodded, headphones back on. We used to walk a lot. I'd show him plants and tell him stories from my time in the ambulance. But over the last year, he'd retreated, preferring the virtual world to the constant tension in our apartment. I didn't blame him. Back in my room, I pulled an old photo album from my nightstand. Our wedding with Arthur. Michael's birth, his first steps, school days, graduation. Here he was, introducing us to Cynthia, young, in love, so happy. Then Chloe's baby photos, then Noah's. The last picture is with Arthur, gray-haired but still vibrant. Who could have known a heart attack would take him so suddenly? After his death, I held on. I worked in the ambulance for 2 more years before retiring. A few months later, Michael lost his job as an engineer. He called me immediately. "Mom, we need some time to get back on our feet. Can we stay with you? Just a year at most." Of course, I agreed. How could I refuse my only son? They sold their house to pay off debts, mostly gambling debts, I later learned. Michael had a problem with sports betting. He moved in. He got a job as an operator at an auto parts factory, a significant pay cut. Cynthia continued at the laundromat. They barely made ends meet, just enough for necessities and the children's education. I never asked them for rent, only for my share of the utilities. But gradually, insidiously, everything changed. Cynthia started bossing me around in my kitchen, rearranging furniture, criticizing my habits. Michael stayed silent, avoiding conflict. At first, I tried to gently assert my boundaries, but each time it ended in a cold war that affected the children. So, I started giving in on small things, then bigger things. I hid the album as Chloe knocked. She'd returned earlier than expected. "Mom, can I come in?" "Of course, sweetie." She slipped in, closing the door. She scanned the room, as if checking we were alone, and sat beside me on the bed. "I wanted to apologize for Mom," she said quietly, "for what she said this morning about the shampoo and everything." "It's okay, sweetie. Don't worry about it." "But it's not okay." Anger flashed in her eyes. "This is your house, and she acts like I'm a guest taking advantage of your hospitality," I finished gently. Chloe nodded, biting her lip. "I talked to Dad, but he just brushes it off. He says everything's fine, that you like taking care of us." I sighed. Michael was a master of self-deception. I took her hand. "Sometimes it's easier for people to ignore problems than to deal with them. Your dad, he's a good man, Chloe. He's just afraid of conflict, like many people." She looked me dead in the eye. "Grandma, why do you let them treat you like that? It's your apartment. You could." "What?" "Kick you all out." I shook my head. "You're my family. You're all I have left." Chloe hugged me, pressing her cheek against my shoulder. "I've been writing down your stories," she said unexpectedly. "The ones you told me about the ambulance, the difficult calls, the lives you saved. You were so brave, Eleanor. What happened to that woman?" I didn't know how to answer. Where was the Eleanor who rushed into burning buildings without hesitation? Who made life or death decisions in seconds? Who wasn't afraid to put arrogant doctors in their place? Who wore her uniform with pride? Who knew her own worth? "She's still here," I whispered, touching my chest. "Just a little tired." Chloe nodded, understanding. "I have to finish my project, but I wanted you to know that Noah and I are on your side. Always." When she left, I sat motionless for a long time, staring out the window. Hayward continued its life, an ordinary American town, with ordinary families, ordinary problems, in ordinary houses. Another knock, this one louder. "Eleanor." "It's Cynthia. I want to wash the curtains in the living room. Can you help me take them down?" I took a deep breath, preparing to leave my refuge and return to a reality where I was not the mistress of the house, but a servant in my own home. "Of course, Cynthia. I'm on my way. Eleanor, sometimes I don't understand how you can stand it." My friend, Brenda, stirred her coffee so vigorously it had long since dissolved the sugar. We were in our favorite cafe, the Bluebird, an unassuming spot near the city library where Brenda had worked for 27 years. I lowered my eyes, stirring my own weak tea. But at least Brenda was here, the only person I could talk to openly. "It's not that bad." I tried to smile, but it felt thin, unconvincing. "Stop it." Brenda's eyes narrowed. At 63, she was as direct as she had been when we met in high school. "You're letting them walk all over you in your own home." I sighed, admitting defeat. Brenda always saw right through me. "What am I supposed to do? Kick them out? They're my family." "Families don't treat each other like that," she said, setting her cup down with a sharp clink. "Listen, Eleanor, I've known you for 50 years. Where is the woman who once stood up to a drunk bully twice her size for hurting his girlfriend?" I smiled involuntarily, remembering. I was 19. We were leaving a dance, and there he was, pushing her around in the parking lot. I stepped between them without a thought. That was a long time ago, I shook my head. We were young and stupid. No, it was brave and right. Brenda leaned forward. Remember when you worked in the ambulance? How many lives you saved? How many difficult decisions you made under pressure? Where's that Eleanor? I closed my eyes and memories flooded back. 28 years in the ambulance service. Paramedic, then senior team member. Endless calls, sleepless nights, adrenaline coursing through me, the profound feeling of doing something important. I remembered the highway accident, pulling 5 victims from a wrecked minibus. Delivering a baby in a skyscraper elevator during a power outage, using only a flashlight. The nursing home fire, rescuing elderly people who couldn't walk. In those moments, I never hesitated. I never doubted myself. I knew what to do, and I did it. You were strong. Brenda's voice brought me back. What happened to that woman? She grew old, I said bitterly. And she was left alone. Nonsense. Brenda waved a hand. I'm not getting any younger, and my husband died 8 years ago. But I don't let anyone walk all over me, and neither should you. I said nothing, staring out the window at the people passing by. Hayward had changed, becoming more crowded, noisier. Or maybe it was me who had changed, becoming quieter. More inconspicuous. Tell me what's going on, Brenda said, pushing a plate of lemon pie towards me. And eat. You've lost weight. I obediently picked up my fork. Useless to argue with Brenda. Everything's the same. Cynthia bosses everyone around. Michael keeps quiet. They treat everything in the house as theirs, but criticize me if I touch their things. Cynthia nitpicks every little thing. I didn't wash the dishes properly. I listened to the radio too loudly. I ruined her blouse. And Michael? What does your son say? Nothing, I shook my head. Or he just brushes it off. Mom, you know Cynthia. She just likes to be in control. As if that's an excuse. Brenda snorted. And the kids? Your grandchildren. My face softened. Chloe understands. Sometimes she tries to stand up for me, but she has a hard time with her mother. Noah. He's retreated into his own world. Computer, games, headphones. We used to walk and talk a lot. Now he hardly ever leaves his room. This situation is clearly not healthy. Brenda tapped her nail on the table. For any of you. You have to do something, Eleanor. What exactly? I spread my hands. They've been with me for 3 years. They don't have money for their own place. If I kick them out, where will they go? You don't have to kick them out, Brenda rolled her eyes. But you need to set boundaries. It's your home, and you deserve respect. Remind them of that. I fell silent, her words echoing. Something stirred inside me, the old determination. But it quickly faded, swallowed by the terrifying fear of being completely alone. I'll think about it, I finally said. I promise. Brenda snorted skeptically but changed the subject, talking about a new computer system at the library that was driving everyone over 40 crazy. I got home around 5, laden with groceries. Michael usually did the shopping, but today he was working overtime. Or so he said. The apartment was unusually quiet. Noah's door was closed, probably gaming. Chloe, according to a note on the fridge, was at a friend studying for a test and would be back for dinner. Muffled voices drifted from Michael and Cynthia's bedroom. I quietly went to the kitchen, starting to unpack. Are you serious, Michael? 12,000. Cynthia's voice, raw with anger, pierced through the closed door. That's all our savings. I froze, listening. I knew it was wrong to eavesdrop, but I couldn't move. I was sure the Lakers would win. Michael's voice sounded pathetic. They had a great winning streak. I don't care about their winning streak. Cynthia was practically shouting. We saved that money for a down payment on a house. To finally get out of here. I covered my mouth with my hand. $12,000. Michael had lost $12,000 gambling. I'll win it back. I promise. His voice was desperate. I have a system. I just started using it. A system. Cynthia's hysterical laughter rang in my ears. Your system got us into your mother's house 3 years ago. I thought you'd given it up after last time. Listen, honey, Michael said, quieter now, trying to soothe her. I'll pay it all back. I've been offered extra shifts at the factory, and I can ask my mom. No, Cynthia snapped. I've had enough of your favors. I'm not going to be even more dependent on your mother. I carefully placed the bag of vegetables on the counter, trying not to make a sound. My heart pounded. He was down again. He had lied to me again. There was no overtime. He was probably at some bookies, blowing the last of their savings. The bedroom door flew open. I barely had time to turn to the refrigerator, pretending to put away groceries. Cynthia stormed out, slamming the door so hard the glass rattled. Oh, Eleanor. She stopped seeing me. You're back already. Her eyes were red from crying or rage. Her hair was disheveled, her cheeks flushed. I'd never seen her so distraught. Just got home. I smiled as naturally as I could. I bought everything for dinner. Thought I'd make tuna casserole. Michael loves it. Cynthia stared at me for a few seconds, as if she didn't understand. Then she shook her head. Do whatever you want, she said. I'm leaving. Don't wait for me for dinner. She grabbed her bag and jacket and rushed out, slamming the apartment door behind her. I exhaled slowly, realizing I'd been holding my breath. Michael emerged from the bedroom, pale, a blank look on his face. He hesitated in the kitchen doorway. You heard everything, didn't you? He asked quietly. I nodded, seeing no point in pretending. 12,000, Michael. My voice trembled. How could you? He lowered his eyes. I saw not a 42-year-old man, but a little boy who had broken a neighbor's window and was afraid to admit it. I thought I'd get lucky this time, he mumbled. I studied the statistics, calculated everything. Don't do this anymore, I said, reaching out and taking his hand. Please, Michael. You're destroying yourself and your family. He nodded, still not looking at me. I know. I'll quit. I promise. This time for sure. We both knew it was a lie. He'd promised the same thing after every loss, returning to gambling the moment he had money. Go rest, I said, gently nudging him towards his room. I'll call you when dinner's ready. Left alone, I mechanically continued cooking, but my thoughts were far away. Brenda's words echoed. You let them walk all over you. And now this. Michael had lost everything, and Cynthia was furious. I knew from experience her anger would inevitably spill over onto me, the weakest link in their eyes. Chloe returned around 7, lively and energetic. Hi, Mom. She kissed my cheek. How was your day? Did you see Brenda? Yes, we had a nice time. I smiled, unwilling to burden her. How's your test prep going? Great. I think I'm ready. She peeked into the oven. Tuna casserole. Where's Mom? She went out, I shrugged. Said not to wait for her for dinner. Chloe frowned. Did she and Dad fight again? I heard her yelling this morning. I hesitated, not wanting to make Michael look bad, but not wanting to lie. They had a disagreement, I finally said. I think they need some time to cool off. Chloe nodded, understanding. It wasn't the first time. I'll go get Noah for dinner, she said, heading for his room. Dinner was consumed in an oppressive silence. Michael barely touched his food, usually devouring my casserole. Noah, as always, was lost in his thoughts. Chloe tried to lighten the mood with school stories, but quickly gave up, sensing the heavy atmosphere. After dinner, I sent the children to their homework and started washing dishes. Michael silently helped clear the table, then retreated to the living room to watch TV, his usual refuge. Cynthia returned around 10. I had just finished ironing and was about to go to bed. Hearing the front door, I froze, bracing for another outburst. Instead, I heard a woman's laughter. Cynthia wasn't alone. Come in, Jessica. My daughter-in-law's voice sounded relaxed, even cheerful. Michael's probably asleep, and the old woman is unlikely to stick her nose out of her room. I stood frozen in my bedroom doorway, not daring to move. The old woman? Was she talking about me? Are you sure? The second female voice, Jessica's, sounded uncertain. It's late. I don't want to disturb anyone. Come on, it's my house, Cynthia dismissed. I can invite whoever I want, whenever I want. I bit my lip, a wave of indignation rising. Her house? After 3 years of living off me, She considered this apartment hers? How is it, living with your husband's mother? Jessica's voice sounded curious. Isn't it cramped? I heard them go into the kitchen, glasses clinking. Cynthia must have gotten the wine. It's temporary. Cynthia's voice sounded confident. We've almost saved up for the down payment on our own house. Lies. After Michael's loss today, they had nothing. But of course, it's not all sunshine and roses. Cynthia lowered her voice, but I still heard every word in the silent apartment. Eleanor sticks her nose everywhere, moves our things around, constantly lectures the kids, especially Chloe. She's already like a grandmother. I feel for you, Jessica said. My mother-in-law was a real pain until she moved to Florida. Best decision of her life. They both laughed, and a lump rose in my throat. So, that's how it was. Was I a pain to them? A nuisance? The hardest part is pretending to appreciate all her favors, Cynthia said, clearly making air quotes. Her dinners, her laundry, her cleaning, as if we couldn't manage without her. Why put up with it? Jessica's voice was genuinely puzzled. Why not just move out? Money, Cynthia sighed. You know how much housing costs in Hayward these days? And since Michael got demoted at work. She trailed off. Anyway, we have to put up with the old bag, but it won't be for long. I promise. The old bag. That's how she sees me. That's what I've become in my own home. I quietly closed my bedroom door and sat on the edge of the bed, my hands trembling. Tears stung my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. Years of ambulance work had taught me to hold back emotions until the right moment. I looked at my hands, wrinkled with prominent veins, but still strong. Hands that had held newborns and closed the eyes of the dying. Hands that had stitched wounds and set broken bones. Hands that, according to Cynthia, were now nothing more than a tool for serving her family. You let them walk all over you, Brenda's voice echoed in my head. And for the first time in a long time, I admitted she was right. I had let it happen. I had become invisible in my own home, an old burden. Something cracked inside me, like ice on a river in spring. A thin, barely noticeable crack. But I knew that cracks like that had a tendency to grow. The week after I overheard that conversation dragged on agonizingly. I tried to act normal, making breakfast, cleaning, doing laundry, the same daily rituals. But something had changed inside me. Cynthia's words, old burden, rang in my ears every time I saw her. Michael was depressed and silent. Cynthia pointedly ignored him at dinner, talking only to the children. I noticed Chloe and Noah exchanging worried glances, sensing the growing tension. On Friday evening, I was dusting the living room when the front door slammed. Cynthia was home early, and something in her gait, the energetic click of her heels on the parquet, told me she had news. Oh, Eleanor, you're here, she said, tossing her bag on the sofa, surveying the room. Great. We need to talk. I carefully put down the duster and straightened up. Something happened, Cynthia? Yes. And something wonderful. She smiled, that special smile that never quite reached her eyes. I got a promotion. I'm now the manager of the laundry chain in our area. Congratulations, I said, genuinely. That's great news. Yes, the pay is better, the career prospects are better, she said, looking around the room as if assessing its potential. But there's one condition. I have to do some of the work remotely from home. I need a home office. Something stirred inside me. A bad feeling I immediately tried to suppress. Maybe we could remodel part of the living room? I suggested. We could put a desk by the window, where the light is good. No, Eleanor. She shook her head. I need a separate space where no one will disturb me. I was thinking about your room. I froze, disbelief washing over me. My room? Yes. She nodded, as if it were the most natural suggestion. It's the brightest and most spacious room, after Michael's. And frankly, it's too big for one person, especially with your minimal belongings. My minimal belongings. For years, I had been getting rid of my things to make room for their junk. I'd given her shelves in my closets, drawers in my dressers, space in the storage room. And now she wanted my last bit of personal space. Where am I going to sleep? My voice was quiet, almost submissive. We can convert the storage room, Cynthia shrugged. It's small, but there's enough room for a bed and a nightstand. You only sleep there anyway, right? A wave of anger rose, but years of suppressing my feelings took over. I need to think about it, Cynthia, I said evenly. These are big changes. Of course, think about it. She smiled condescendingly as if talking to a child. But I'd like to start rearranging tomorrow. The office furniture will be delivered on Wednesday. She had already ordered it. Without asking me. Without discussing it. She had just decided. Have you discussed this with Michael? I asked, hoping my son would at least try to stand up for me. Of course, she dismissed. He's all for it. This is our chance to finally get back on our feet after recent events. Recent events? Is that what she called Michael's $12,000 loss? I'll talk to him, I said, a strange calmness growing inside me. Not humility. Something else. Something dangerous. Please, Cynthia shrugged. Just don't take too long to decide. I already ordered the paint for the walls. I think light gray will look great. She turned and walked into the kitchen, leaving me standing in the middle of the living room with a dust rag in my hand. My house, my room, my life. And they were going to change it all without my consent. Michael came home around 7. I was waiting for him in the kitchen, cooking his favorite roast. Cynthia was at a meeting with colleagues, and the kids were at a friend's. We were alone, mother and son, like in the old days when Arthur was away, and we'd have special evenings with board games and homemade cookies. It smells amazing, Mom. He smiled as he entered, but his smile faded when he saw my face. Is something wrong? Cynthia told me about her promotion, I said, pointing him to a chair. Sit down. Let's talk. He nervously licked his lips but obeyed. Yes, that's great news. Her salary will almost double. And she wants to take my room for her office, I interrupted. Is it true that you agreed? Michael lowered his eyes, and I knew the answer. Mom, it's only temporary, he began. As soon as we save up for the down payment on the house. After you lost $12,000? I shook my head. Michael, do you realize you're asking me to move into a storage room? A windowless room the size of a closet. We'll make it comfortable, he said, still not looking at me. We'll put in a nice bed, lamps. It's not about the bed, I sighed. It's about respect. This is my house, Michael. I'm still paying the mortgage on it. I know. He slumped further. And we're grateful to you for letting us live here, but this is a chance for Cynthia, for all of us. With her new salary, we can save up for our own place faster. And how long will that take? I looked at my son, trying to see the responsible man Arthur, and I had hoped to raise. A year, 2, 5? When was the last time you did something for yourself instead of just going with the flow and indulging Cynthia? That's not fair. He finally looked up, a flash of hurt in his eyes. I'm trying to provide for my family. Yes, I made a mistake with those bets. But I'm working on it. And Cynthia's promotion is our chance to make things right. By making your mother live in a closet? I shook my head. Michael, this isn't right, and you know it. He was silent, staring at his untouched roast. I could see the struggle. Part of him knew I was right, but a stronger part was afraid to stand up to his wife. I'll talk to Cynthia, he finally said. Maybe we can work something out. I knew he wouldn't. Or he would pretend to, then tell me Cynthia wouldn't agree, as always. Okay, I nodded, giving him one last chance to show some backbone. Talk to her. The rest of the evening passed in tense silence. Michael went to the living room, and I sat in the kitchen for a long time, going over options. The storage room was tiny, about 6 square meters, no windows, just a single bare bulb. The prospect of spending the rest of my life there was depressing. But what depressed me most was the thought of parting with things that wouldn't fit. Especially the vinyl record collection Arthur and I had spent a lifetime curating. More than 200 albums, from classic jazz to 60s rock and roll. Definitely no room for them in a storage closet. The next morning, I woke to the sound of furniture being moved. Peeking out, I saw Cynthia and Michael in the living room, pushing the sofa against the wall. What's going on? I asked, pulling my robe tighter. We're getting ready to rearrange the furniture, Cynthia smiled, but her eyes remained cold. Michael said you discussed everything yesterday. I looked at my son, who carefully avoided my gaze. We talked, I said slowly, but I didn't give my consent. Oh. Cynthia straightened, her smile vanishing. I thought it was settled. The office furniture is being delivered on Wednesday, and we wanted to start repainting the room today. I haven't decided yet, Cynthia. I crossed my arms. This is a big change. I need time. There's no time, she snapped. I need to start working from home on Monday. If the room isn't ready, I could lose this opportunity. Mom. Michael finally looked at me. Please, this is very important to us. I felt anger rising. They hadn't even asked. They just decided everything for me, confident I would give in again. I need to think about it, I said firmly. Don't touch anything in my room until I've made a decision. But Cynthia began. No. I raised my hand, stopping her. It's my room in my house. I have a right to think about this. Without waiting for a response, I went back to my room and closed the door. My heart pounded. For the first time in a long time, I had openly defied Cynthia, and it felt liberating. I spent the whole day thinking. Part of me wanted to give in, as always, for the sake of family peace. Another part, the determined Eleanor of the past, rebelled against yet another humiliation. By evening, I still hadn't made a final decision. Around 6 a knock. Chloe stood there with a cup of chamomile tea. I brought you some, Mom. Can I come in? I nodded. I heard what's going on, she said, sitting on the edge of the bed. It's not fair, Mom. They can't evict you to the storage room. They think they can, I said with a bitter smile, sitting next to her. And to be honest, I've led them to believe that I'll give in to any argument. But not this time, right? Chloe looked at me. Hopefully you won't agree. I sighed, looking at the shelves of records. Each one held memories. Arthur and I dancing to Frank Sinatra on our first anniversary. Little Michael falling asleep to Ella Fitzgerald. Family game nights with Beatles records. I don't know, I said. Honestly, I don't want to cause any trouble. Come on. Chloe took my hand. They're the ones causing trouble, not you. This is your home. At that moment, the door swung open without a knock. Cynthia stood in the doorway, a tape measure in her hands. Oh, you're here, she said, glancing at us quickly. Chloe, go help your father with the boxes in the living room. What boxes? For your things. Cynthia entered, beginning to measure the wall. I decided not to waste any time. We'll start packing tomorrow, so we can paint the walls on Sunday. I didn't give my consent, Cynthia. My patience was wearing thin. I asked you not to touch my room. Eleanor, she sighed with feigned patience. We can't wait forever. We have to make a decision now. And I've made mine, I said firmly. The answer is no. I'm not moving into the closet. Cynthia froze, tape measure in hand. Chloe held her breath. What do you mean no? Cynthia slowly turned to me. This is not up for discussion. I need an office, and I need this room. I met her gaze, unblinking. Find another solution. Like what? Cynthia crossed her arms. Convert Chloe's room? Or Noah's? They're children. They need space to study. And I don't need space? I felt a fresh wave of indignation. Am I not a person? You're retired. Cynthia snapped. What are you going to do in such a big room? Stare at the ceiling? The closet is plenty big enough for you. Chloe gasped at such blunt rudeness. Mom, how can you say that? Mind your own business. Cynthia shot her daughter an angry look. Go to your father. No. Chloe stood next to me. I'm staying with Grandma. This is her room, and you have no right to kick her out. Michael appeared in the doorway, drawn by the raised voices. What's going on here? He looked from his wife to his daughter and mother. Your mother refuses to move, Cynthia said dryly. She says she needs this room. For what, I wonder? For this junk. She pointed to the shelves of records. It's not junk. I took a step forward, feeling something break inside me. This is Arthur's and my collection. Our life. Our memories. Arthur's been gone for 5 years. Cynthia rolled her eyes. It's time to move on. These records are just gathering dust. You could sell them? I think some of them are worth a lot of money. Sell them? I felt the blood drain from my face. You want to sell my records? Why not? Cynthia shrugged. No one listens to them anyway, and we need the money. You always need money, I shook my head. But not at the expense of my memories. Cynthia, Michael interjected uncertainly. Maybe we can really find another solution. Mom's records. Oh, God, don't start. Cynthia cut him off with a wave of her hand. I thought we had discussed everything. We need this office. It's our chance to finally get out of the debt you got us into. Don't talk like that in front of the children. Michael paled. What am I supposed to say? Pretend everything is fine. Cynthia raised her voice. We need money. I need an office, and I'm going to get it. Even if I have to take all this junk to the dump. She grabbed one of the records from the shelf. A rare Chet Baker album Arthur had given me on our last anniversary. No. I lunged, trying to grab it. Don't you dare touch it. Or what? Cynthia stepped back, holding the record above her head. What are you going to do, Eleanor? Kick us out? She laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. Come on, we all know you're too scared to be alone. You're only still living here because we put up with you. The silence that followed was deafening. I froze, unable to believe my ears. Michael stared at his wife with wide eyes. Chloe pressed her hand to her mouth. What did you say? My voice sounded unrecognizably calm. You heard me. Cynthia lowered the record, but didn't put it back. It's time to face the truth. This is our home now. We live here. We're raising our children here. And you? You're just an old woman clinging to the past and preventing us from moving forward. Cynthia. Michael finally found his voice. You're crossing the line. No, she's crossing the line. Cynthia pointed a finger at me. By refusing to give up the room we need. Selfish old. I raised my hand, stopping the flow of insults. Something inside me had changed. It was as if a wall had come crashing down, holding back everything I had been feeling for years. You're right about one thing, Cynthia. It's time to face the truth. I looked around the room. My room in my apartment. The apartment I was still paying for with my modest pension. The apartment where I had allowed my daughter-in-law to boss me around. Humiliate me. Treat me like a servant. This is my home, I said quietly but firmly. My apartment. The one I pay for. The one I let you move into 3 years ago out of pity, because you couldn't afford to rent anywhere after Michael lost all his money gambling. Cynthia paled, but continued to stare defiantly. So what? You can't kick us out. You can't live alone. You're afraid of being alone. You need us more than we need you. That's not true. I shook my head. I managed on my own for 2 years after Arthur died. I can manage now. I looked at Michael, who stood pale and confused, not knowing whose side to take. I put up with all this because you're my family, I continued. I thought I was helping you, but I was wrong. I wasn't helping. I was letting you use me. And that ends now. I walked over to Cynthia and gently but firmly took the record from her hands, placing it back on the shelf. No one touches my things, I said. No one is taking my room. And if you don't like it, then you'll have to find another place to live. After my declaration, an oppressive silence fell over the apartment. Cynthia shot me a withering glance, stormed into her bedroom, and slammed the door. Michael stood in my doorway, clearly wanting to say something, but couldn't decide what, and simply shrugged, following his wife. Chloe hugged me tightly and whispered, "I'm proud of you, Mom," before going to her room. Even Noah, who usually never left his room, opened his door a crack and looked at me with a new expression, a mix of surprise and respect. I was left alone, my heart pounding and my hands shaking, yet strangely calm. It was as if I had shed a heavy burden I'd been carrying for years. It was late, around 11, but I knew I wouldn't sleep. Instead, I took out an old photo album from my dresser and sat on the bed. Leafing through the pages, I immersed myself in memories. Here we were with Arthur, young, smiling, full of hope, standing in front of this very apartment the day we signed the papers. It was 1987. We were just over 30, and Michael was 5, holding our hands so small, with his tousled hair and crooked smile, his front tooth recently fallen out. Our home, Arthur had said, putting his arm around my shoulders. We did it, Eleanor. Our own home. We'd worked like crazy to save for the down payment. Arthur took double shifts at the factory. I worked nights at the hospital. We saved on everything, ate cheap pasta, bought clothes at thrift stores, gave up vacations. But it was worth it. The feeling when you walk into your home, knowing no one can kick you out, is priceless. I turned the page. Here we were, fixing up the living room. Arthur painting the walls in paint-splattered jeans, me washing windows in a headscarf, Michael lugging small tools with an important look on his face. We did all the renovations ourselves, saving every dollar, but what fun we had. We'd turn the music up loud, sing, dance with paintbrushes and mops, take breaks for pizza we ordered despite our frugality. Little celebrations amidst our busy work days. The next photo, our housewarming party. Friends, relatives, colleagues crowded into the living room. Everyone brought gifts. Some curtains, some pots, some flower pots. Brenda, there she was, in the corner with a glass of wine, laughing at someone's joke. She gave us the first record for our future collection, Bob Dylan's Time Out of Mind. Start with the classics, she'd said. And so we did. Every month, no matter how tight money was, we bought one new record. It was our ritual. After payday, we'd go to the music store and spend a long time choosing, consulting. Jazz, rock, blues, classical. Our collection grew, reflecting our changing tastes and moods. I closed the album and walked to the record shelves. I ran my fingers along the spines, reading the familiar titles. Each one was a piece of my life with Arthur. Our first years in this apartment, Michael's birth, his growing up, our family holidays, quiet evenings just listening to music and talking about everything under the sun. Arthur always said music was the language of the soul. He loved jazz, especially Miles Davis and Chet Baker. I was more a fan of classic rock and folk, Bob Dylan, Simon and Garfunkel, Joni Mitchell. But we found compromises, discovered new things together, created our own musical world. And now Cynthia wanted to throw it all away or sell it like junk, like useless trash, to make room for her office in my house. I went back to the bed and sat down, looking out the window at Hayward at night. The city lights twinkled in the darkness, mirroring the stars. Arthur loved that view. Sometimes in the evenings, we'd just stand at the window, hugging, and look at the city. Imagine how many lives, how many stories are unfolding right now behind each of those windows, he would say. What would he say if he could see what our family had become after his death? What would he advise me to do? I knew the answer. Arthur always taught Michael to respect others and take responsibility for his actions. He would not approve of how his son allowed his wife to treat me, and he certainly wouldn't have stayed silent if someone tried to evict him from his own bedroom. How did I let things get this far? The thought haunted me, forcing me to relive and analyze the past few years. After Arthur's death, I was devastated. A sudden heart attack took him at 64. He didn't even get to retire. Didn't see Chloe go to high school. Didn't live to see Noah's birth. It was so unfair, so painful that I felt numb. For the first year, I just existed. Going to work, coming home, going through the motions. Michael and his family visited every weekend, bringing food, helping with cleaning, keeping me company. I was grateful for their support. And then, when Michael lost his job, I didn't hesitate to offer for them to move in. It seemed perfect. They wouldn't pay rent, I wouldn't be alone, and I'd spend more time with my grandchildren. At first, everything went well. Cynthia cooked. Michael helped with repairs. The children filled the apartment with life and laughter. But gradually, almost imperceptibly, the balance of power began to shift. At first, it was little things. Cynthia rearranged furniture in the kitchen without asking. Then she started buying foods I never ate, explaining they were better for me. Then the daily routine revolved around their schedule, not mine. And at some point, I realized I was asking permission to turn on the TV in my own living room. I let them do it. I justified it. They're young. They have their own lives. I don't want to interfere. It's not important. Just little things. For the sake of peace. So as not to be left alone. But now, looking at it from the outside, I realized I had betrayed myself. And not just myself. I betrayed Arthur's memory, the life we built, the values we held dear. We would never have allowed anyone to boss us around or set rules in our home. And now Cynthia wanted to evict me from my own bedroom, sell Arthur's record collection, and lock me in a windowless closet. And she had the audacity to say she was putting up with me in my own home. This had to stop. I opened the drawer of my bedside table and took out a folder with documents. The deed to the apartment, the mortgage, the insurance policies. Everything was in Arthur's and my names, and after his death, only in mine. Michael and Cynthia had no legal claim. They were only here because I allowed them to be, and it was time to remind them of that. I decided that in the morning I would go to the bank, then to a lawyer. I needed to know exactly what rights I had and how to protect them. No more concessions, no more compromises at the expense of my dignity. With that thought, I finally went to bed, and for the first time in a long time, I fell asleep almost immediately, without the usual tossing and turning and anxious thoughts. The morning greeted me with bright sunshine and an unusual silence. Michael's car was still in the parking lot. They hadn't left. They were probably just avoiding me after yesterday. I quickly dressed, choosing my best pantsuit, the one I used to wear for important meetings at the hospital, dark blue, austere, confidence-inspiring. I pulled my hair back into a neat bun and even put on some light makeup. Looking in the mirror, I didn't see a downtrodden grandmother, but a professional, a woman who knew her worth. When I left the room, I found Michael in the kitchen. He was sitting over a cup of coffee, looking as if he hadn't slept all night. "Good morning," I said in a neutral tone. He flinched and looked up at me with tired eyes. "Mom, about yesterday." Cynthia didn't mean it. She was just on edge. "No excuses, Michael." I poured myself some tea. Cynthia said exactly what she thinks, and I appreciate her honesty. "Are you going somewhere?" He glanced at my suit. "I have things to do in town," I said, not going into details. "I'll be back for dinner." He nodded, clearly not wanting to continue the conversation. I finished my tea, grabbed my bag, and left the apartment, feeling my resolve grow with every step. My first stop was the bank. My advisor, a young woman named Ashley, greeted me with a professional smile. "How can I help you today, Mrs. Hendricks?" "I need some information about my mortgage," I said, taking out my documents. "I want to know how much I have left to pay and what my rights are as the sole owner of the property." Ashley typed something into her computer, studying my account. "You have a very good credit history, Mrs. Hendricks," she remarked. "You've never missed a payment in." She scrolled down. "All 38 years of your mortgage. Impressive." I felt a surge of pride. Arthur and I had always been disciplined, and I had continued that. "Only 3 payments left," Ashley said. "After that, the apartment will be yours, unencumbered." 3 payments. Just 3 months, and the 30-year mortgage we took out with Arthur when we were young parents with dreams would be paid off. "What about my rights?" I asked. "Can I evict someone from the apartment?" Ashley raised her eyebrows slightly. "You are the sole owner, according to the documents. That gives you the full right to decide who can live in your property and who cannot." She recommended I consult a housing lawyer and gave me the contact details for David Hayes, a specialist she knew. An hour later, I was sitting in David Hayes' office, an elderly gentleman with gray temples and a penetrating gaze. "So, Mrs. Hendricks, let me see if I understand the situation correctly." He looked through my documents. "Your son and daughter-in-law have been living in your apartment for the past 3 years without a lease, have not paid any rent, and are now trying to limit your rights as the owner." I nodded, feeling a strange sense of relief that someone else had articulated it so clearly. "And yesterday, my daughter-in-law said that I only live there because they tolerate me," I added. "Even though it's my apartment and I'm still paying the mortgage." Mr. Hayes shook his head. "I'm afraid this is a classic case of emotional abuse of an elderly person by relatives," he said. "Unfortunately, I encounter such situations more often than I would like." Emotional abuse. Those words hit me like a slap. I had never thought of my situation in those terms, but it was true. Constant humiliation, devaluation of my feelings, disregard for my needs. Wasn't that abuse? "What are my options?" I asked, trying to sound calm. "As the owner, you have every right to evict unwanted tenants," the lawyer explained. "Even if they're your relatives, the law is on your side." He outlined the procedure, a formal notice of eviction specifying a date, court action if they refused. "But I would recommend starting with a conversation, Mrs. Hendricks. Explain the situation. Let them know you know your rights and are prepared to defend them. Often, that alone is enough to make people reconsider." I nodded, thinking. I didn't want to go to court. They were my son and my grandchildren. But I couldn't go on living in such a humiliating situation. What about the children? I asked. My grandchildren are 17 and 14. I don't want them to suffer. That's a difficult issue, Mr. Hayes admitted. But legally, they are minors and under the care of their parents. If you evict the parents, the children go with them. That was the hardest part. The thought of not seeing Chloe and Noah every day was painful. But was the current situation any better? Was it good for them to grow up in a home where their grandmother was humiliated and their parents constantly fought? I thanked Mr. Hayes for his advice and left his office with a plan of action and a sample eviction notice he had helped me draft. On the way home, I stopped at a cafe to catch my breath and think things over again. I ordered tea and watched people pass by, each immersed in their own lives. What did I really want? To evict my son and his family, or just to regain my self-respect, my dignity, control over my own life? I didn't find the answer over that cup of tea, but I knew for sure that I couldn't go back to the way things were. When I got home, only Chloe was there. She was in the living room with a book, but put it down when she saw me. Mom, I was worried. You never leave for so long without telling me. I'm sorry, dear. I smiled, touched by her concern. I had some important things to do. I went into the kitchen, but Chloe followed. Grandma, she began, looking troubled. I wanted to talk about yesterday. What Mom said was awful. I'm so ashamed of her. I put down the groceries and turned to her. You don't need to be ashamed of your parents' actions, Chloe. But I am. She shook her head. Not just for yesterday, for everything they do to you. It's like you're not a person, just a convenient housekeeper. I could see how hard it was for her to say. A 17-year-old girl shouldn't feel that kind of shame for her parents. I went to a lawyer today, I said, deciding to be honest. I found out my rights as the owner of the apartment. Chloe nodded, not surprised. Are you going to evict them? I haven't decided yet, I admitted. But I won't let them treat me the way they have for the past few years. I understand, she said quietly. And I'll support whatever you decide. Even if we have to move away. Her words touched me deeply. This young girl showed more maturity and understanding than her parents. Thank you, dear. I hugged her. Whatever happens, I'll always be here. For you. You know that, right? She nodded, pressing herself against me. I know. And I'll be here for you too. We stood for a few minutes, finding comfort in each other. Then I pulled away and wiped my eyes. I'm going to get changed, I said. Then I'll make dinner. In my room, I sat on the bed, looking at the shelves of records, the photographs, all the things that made up my life. And I knew that I couldn't let anyone devalue it anymore. I got up and took an old suitcase from the closet, the one Arthur and I had used for our only vacation in Hawaii, saved for our 20th anniversary. I opened it on the bed and began carefully packing my things. I had made up my mind. I wasn't going to put off the conversation any longer. That evening, when the whole family gathered for dinner, I announced my decision. I have some news, I said as everyone began to eat. I'm going to spend a week with Brenda. Michael froze, his fork midway to his mouth. Cynthia looked up. Chloe exchanged a quick glance with Noah. To Brenda's? Michael asked. That's unexpected. I continued eating calmly. We've been planning to spend some time together for a long time. She recently updated her book collection and wants to show me her new editions. That was half true. Brenda and I had discussed spending a few days together, but no specific plans. However, after consulting my lawyer, I had called my friend and told her everything. She immediately offered her home. When are you leaving? Cynthia's voice betrayed poorly concealed irritation. Tomorrow morning, I said, spreading butter on my bread as if discussing the most ordinary thing. Tomorrow. Cynthia put down her fork. But we have plans for the weekend. Who's going to cook? Who's going to look after the kids? I barely suppressed a smile. Of course, her first thought was who would wait on them. They're not babies anymore, Cynthia, I pointed out. Chloe's 17. Noah's 14. They can take care of themselves for a few days. And as for cooking, I shrugged, I'm sure you'll do just fine. After all, it's your house, as you recently pointed out. Cynthia blushed, but said nothing, clearly not wanting another argument in front of the children. Michael looked confused. Are you sure, Mom? Maybe you could reschedule? I'm swamped at work and will be home late. No, Michael. I shook my head. My plans are set. Brenda is waiting for me, and I want to take a break after everything that's happened recently. There was an awkward pause. Everyone knew what everything referred to. Okay, Michael finally said. Of course, Mom. You need a break. We'll manage. Chloe caught my eye across the table and nodded slightly. She understood and supported me. I can cook, she offered. While you're away, Mom, I know all your recipes. Thank you, dear, I smiled at her. But don't overdo it. You have enough to do. The rest of dinner passed in tense silence. Cynthia demonstratively picked at her food. Michael looked lost, like a child who suddenly realized his parents weren't all-powerful and wouldn't always be there. Noah, as usual, quickly finished and asked to return to his games. Only Chloe behaved normally, talking about school and weekend plans. After dinner, I retired to my room to finish packing. I was folding clothes when there was a knock. It was Michael. Can I come in? He shifted uncertainly. Of course, I said, gesturing. He entered, looked around as if seeing my room for the first time, and sat on the edge of the bed. Mom, I wanted to apologize, he began. For Cynthia, for myself, for everything that happened. I continued packing without looking at him. You know, Michael, apologies only matter when they're followed by change. I understand, he said, lowering his head. And I promise everything will change. We'll find another solution with Cynthia's office. She'll talk to her boss. It's not about the office, I finally turned to him. It's about respect, about understanding boundaries, about realizing this is my home, and I deserve to be treated like a human being in it. Michael nodded, still not looking up. I know. And I'm to blame. I should have stopped this a long time ago. Yes, you should have, I agreed. But you chose the path of least resistance. As always. He flinched, and I felt a little sorry for him. My son had always been weak-willed, preferring to give in to avoid conflict since he was a child. Arthur had tried to teach him to stand up for himself, but it seemed to be a character trait that couldn't be changed. I'll change, he said with unexpected determination. I'll prove to you that I can be different. Okay, I nodded. I'll wait. He stood, clearly wanting to say something else, but changed his mind and just hugged me briefly, awkwardly, as he hadn't in years. Have a good trip, Mom, he said, and left. I closed the door behind him and went back to packing, wondering if he would really keep his promise. Part of me wanted to believe he would, but another, more realistic part, doubted it. Too many times he had said one thing and done another. Early the next morning, while everyone was still asleep, I finished packing and called a taxi. I left a note in the kitchen, reminding them of simple things, to water the flowers, feed the fish, set the dishwasher. The usual household chores they would surely forget without my reminders. Brenda greeted me with open arms. Welcome to the Resistance headquarters, she laughed, helping with my suitcase. You finally did it, Eleanor. I'm proud of you. Her house, a small but cozy cottage, was the complete opposite of my apartment. Books everywhere, bright pillows, unusual souvenirs from her travels, paintings by local artists. No hint of the primness or strict order Cynthia valued. The guest bedroom is yours. Brenda showed me a small, bright room overlooking the garden. Make yourself at home. Then we'll have some wine and make plans for revenge. I laughed, feeling the tension of the last few days begin to melt away. No revenge, just justice. Boring, she winked. But I'll support whatever you decide. The week at Brenda's flew by. We went to movies, a museum, a concert in the park. We cooked dinner, played board games, discussed books. It was as if I had returned to a time when I was just Eleanor, a woman with her own interests, opinions, and desires. Not a grandmother, not a housekeeper, not a ghost in my own home. Every evening, Chloe called, telling me how things were at home. According to her, Cynthia was furious that I had left, but trying not to show it. Michael was spending more time at work than at home. And Noah, to everyone's surprise, started helping out, washing dishes, taking out trash, even cooking dinner on Sunday. He misses you, Grandma, Chloe said, though he'll never admit it. That warmed my heart. I missed my grandchildren, too. Despite everything, They were part of my life, my family. The day before I returned, I met with Mr. Hayes, my lawyer. We discussed the next steps, and he handed me the official eviction notice, drawn up in accordance with all legal requirements. 30 days, he said. By law, you must give them at least 30 days to move out. If they don't leave, we'll go to court. I read the document carefully. It was written in dry legal language, without emotion. Simply a statement of fact. I, as the property owner, was demanding the living space be vacated within 30 days. Are you sure you want to do this? Mr. Hayes asked, noticing my pensive expression. It's not too late to change your mind. I shook my head. No, I'm sure it's necessary. He nodded and shook my hand. You're a strong woman, Mrs. Hendricks. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. On the day I returned, I felt a strange mixture of anxiety and determination. On one hand, I knew I was doing the right thing. On the other, I was afraid of the reaction of my son, my daughter-in-law, even my grandchildren. Was I being too cruel? Was I destroying our family for good? As if reading my mind, Brenda hugged me before I left. Remember, Eleanor, she said, you're not destroying your family. They did that with their attitude toward you. You're just restoring justice and your dignity. I nodded, grateful for her support, and got into the taxi that would take me home. Chloe opened the door to the apartment. When she saw me, she lit up and rushed to hug me. Grandma, finally. We missed you so much. Noah appeared behind her, still awkward, bangs falling over his eyes, but this time without headphones. Hi, Mom, he said, and to my surprise, hugged me, too, though more reserved. I missed you too, I smiled, touched by their reunion. How did you manage without me? We survived. Chloe rolled her eyes. Mom tried to cook, but let's just say we ordered a lot of takeout. I laughed and walked into the apartment. The first thing I noticed was the mess. It wasn't catastrophic, but noticeable. Things out of place, dust on the shelves, dirty dishes in the sink. Everything I usually kept tidy without thinking about it. Are Mom and Dad home? I asked. Dad's in the living room, Chloe replied. Mom's at work, but she should be back soon. I nodded and headed for the living room. Michael was on the sofa, absent-mindedly flipping through TV channels. Hearing my footsteps, he looked up. Mom. He jumped up. You're back, as you can see, I smiled, noticing how tired he looked. How are you? Fine, he shrugged. Did you have a good rest? Wonderful. I sat in the chair opposite him. Brenda says hi. We haven't had such a good time in a long time. Michael nodded, clearly not knowing what else to say. An awkward pause ensued. Is Cynthia still at work? I asked, though I knew the answer. Yes, she's working late today. Michael rubbed his neck, a gesture he always made when nervous. She's very busy with her new promotion. I understand, I nodded. When she gets back, we need to talk, all of us. Something in my tone made him tense. About what? About our future, I replied simply. About how we're going to live from now on. Michael lowered his eyes, as if he understood where the conversation was going. Okay, he finally said. We'll talk when Cynthia gets back. I nodded and got up. I'm going to unpack and rest a little from the trip. In my room, I was relieved to find everything untouched. No one had touched my records, moved furniture, or prepared it for an office. It was a good sign. Maybe Michael had really talked to Cynthia like he said he would. I unpacked, showered, and changed. Then I helped Chloe make dinner, just pasta with vegetable sauce. But after a week of deliveries, the kids were thrilled to have a home-cooked meal. Cynthia came home around 8, after we had finished dinner and cleared the table. She entered the apartment looking like someone carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. Oh, Eleanor. She nodded when she saw me. You're back. Yes, as promised, I smiled. How was your week? Fine. She hung her coat on the rack. Lots of work. New responsibilities take time. I understand, I nodded. Michael said you're staying late every day. Yes. She headed for the kitchen. Without an office at home, I have to stay at work longer. A subtle hint I chose to ignore. Can we talk? I asked. All of us. I have some news. Cynthia turned, looking at me suspiciously. What news? Let's go to the living room, I suggested. so we don't have to repeat ourselves." She shrugged and followed me. Michael was already sitting there, looking at his phone. Chloe and Noah joined us, sitting next to each other on the couch. I remained standing, feeling it was the right thing to do. "I thought a lot during my vacation at Brenda's," I began. "About our situation, about how we've lived for the past 3 years, and about how I want to live from now on." Cynthia crossed her arms, clearly preparing to defend herself. Michael looked alarmed. "And I've come to the conclusion that this can't go on," I said, taking the eviction notice from my pocket. "So, I've made a decision." I handed the envelope to Michael. He slowly opened it, read the contents, and his face went white. "What's that?" Cynthia snatched the paper from his hands and quickly scanned the text. "What is this nonsense? An eviction notice? Are you kidding?" "No, Cynthia," I shook my head. "I've never been more serious. You can't evict us." She crumpled the paper. "This is our home." "No." I looked calmly into her eyes. "This is my home. I've been paying the mortgage on it for 38 years. I let you in here 3 years ago out of compassion. But you've turned my hospitality into a right to boss me around." Cynthia looked as if she had been hit. "We boss you around?" She laughed, but there was no joy in her laughter. "We take care of you. We feed you. Clean up after you. Do your laundry." "No, Cynthia," I shook my head. "I cook meals for the entire family. I clean the apartment. I do your laundry. And in return, you call me an old burden and try to evict me from my own bedroom." Cynthia opened her mouth to argue, but couldn't think of a response. "Mom," Michael finally found his voice. "Let's discuss this. I'm sure we can work something out." "Work something out, Michael?" I looked at my son. "I've been compromising for 3 years. I've given in on everything, from the placement of kitchen utensils to the TV viewing schedule. I kept quiet when Cynthia insulted me, rummaged through my things, and belittled my feelings. I put up with you gambling away your money instead of saving for a place of your own. I let you think this was your home, even though the mortgage payments were coming out of my account the whole time." Michael hung his head, acknowledging the truth. "And you know what's the saddest part?" I continued. "I did it out of love, because you're my family. But I've recently realized that real love isn't letting others treat you like a doormat. Real love is setting healthy boundaries and demanding respect. And that's why you're kicking us out?" Cynthia's voice was bitter. "Your only son and grandchildren? I'm giving you 30 days to find another place to live," I replied. "That's more than the law requires, and I'm willing to help with the first month's rent if you need it." "How generous," Cynthia snorted. "Have you thought about the children? They'll have to change schools, friends." "Actually, I looked at Chloe and Noah. I wanted to offer them to stay with me, if they want to. There are rooms available, plenty of space." "What?" Cynthia jumped up. "You want to split up our family?" "No." I shook my head. "I'm offering them a choice. Chloe is 17. She'll be graduating in a year. Noah is 14. He's old enough to make his own decisions. If they want to stay with you, I'll understand. If they want to stay here, our door is always open." Cynthia turned to the children. "Did you hear that madness? She wants to destroy our family." Chloe exchanged glances with her brother. "Mom, no one is destroying the family," she said quietly. "Grandma just wants to be treated with respect, and I understand her." "So, you're on her side?" Cynthia narrowed her eyes. "After everything we've done for you." "I'm not taking sides," Chloe straightened up. "But I've seen how you've treated Mom all these years, and it's not right." Cynthia looked at Noah. "What about you? Are you going to betray your own parents too?" Noah, who had been silent until then, sighed. "Mom, stop being so dramatic. No one is betraying anyone. Mom is her home, and you and Dad, you weren't very nice to her." Cynthia looked as if everyone she loved had betrayed her. She turned to Michael for support, but he was staring at the floor, unwilling to get involved. "Fine," she finally said. "Just fine. So, that's how it's going to be. Well, Eleanor, you win. We'll move out, like you want. But don't think we'll still be a family after that." "We'll always be a family," I replied. "But now on my terms. With mutual respect and healthy boundaries." Cynthia snorted, grabbed her bag, and stormed out, slamming the door. Michael sat there for a few more seconds, then sighed heavily and followed her, as always choosing the path of least resistance. The three of us remained, me and my grandchildren. A silence broken only by the ticking of the old clock. "Grandma," Chloe finally said, "are you sure you don't mind if we stay with you?" "Of course not." I smiled. "This is your home as much as it is mine. But it's your decision." They exchanged glances, communicating silently. "I'll stay," Chloe said firmly. "At least until I finish school. Then we'll see." "Me, too," Noah nodded. "The internet's good for gaming here." I laughed, feeling genuine relief for the first time in a long time. "Then it's settled. We'll manage together." They went to their rooms, Chloe to prepare for her test, Noah to his virtual battles. I remained in the living room, staring at the closed door behind which Michael and Cynthia had disappeared. I knew they would return to collect their things, talk to the children, perhaps try to change my mind. But I would not change my decision. Enough concessions. Enough compromises at the expense of my own dignity. I walked over to the record shelf, the very collection Arthur and I had spent a lifetime putting together and that Cynthia wanted to throw away. I ran my fingers along the spines, looking for a particular one. There it was, Miles Davis's Kind of Blue, Arthur's favorite album. I carefully took the record from its sleeve and placed it on the turntable. The soft, melancholic sounds of the trumpet filled the room. I closed my eyes, allowing the music to envelop me, to take me back to the days when Arthur and I would sit here in the evenings, holding hands and dreaming of the future. "You would be proud of me," I said to him in my mind. I finally stood up for myself. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Michael might be offended, Cynthia would harbor resentment, and even my grandchildren might reconsider their decision. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in control of my life. That I wasn't a ghost in my own home, but its rightful owner. I opened my eyes and smiled as I looked at the familiar walls. The photographs on the mantelpiece, the cozy armchairs where we used to sit as a family. This house had seen so many stories, happy and sad, ordinary and extraordinary. And now a new chapter was beginning, my chapter. I turned up the volume a little and began to move to the beat of the music, slowly, uncertainly at first, but gradually more freely. I hadn't danced in how long? 5 years? Not since Arthur passed away. But my body remembered the movements, the rhythm, the feeling of freedom the music gave me. I spun around the living room, letting Miles Davis's trumpet lead me, just as Arthur had once led me in dance. And with every step, with every turn, I felt the weight of years of humiliation and self-denial fall from my shoulders. This was my home, my life, and I had finally regained the right to control it. When the record ended, I stopped in the middle of the room, slightly out of breath and pleasantly tired. For the first time in a long time, I smiled effortlessly, without needing to hide my true feelings. Chloe was standing in the doorway, watching me with a tender smile. "You were dancing, Mom," she said. "I haven't seen you dance since Grandpa." "Yes," I nodded. "It's time to remember how to do it." She came over and hugged me. "I'm glad you're back," she whispered. "The real you." I hugged her tightly in return, knowing what she meant. I really was back. Not just back to this apartment, but back to myself, to the Eleanor who knew her worth and wasn't afraid to stand up for herself. And this Eleanor wasn't going anywhere. I'm still trying to piece together how I allowed things to get this far, how I became an invisible old bag in my own home. If you've ever felt invisible in your own life, or had to fight for your space and dignity, I'd really love to hear your story. Tell me, what would you have done in my situation? Drop your thoughts below, I'm reading everything.